mean, so you were going to university effectively still in a war zone?
Yes.
Which is difficult.
Yes,
going to university at most times, but doing it. What was your daily routine like?
I might be a politician. Well, politicians make a lot of money in Ukraine.
So I've heard on social media, yes. I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's true. The best way to get out of this is just work more. This is the answer to everything.
The answer to everything is work more.
Work more, because...
Yeah. That's so not a British philosophy, but go on. On this episode of the Engaging Marketeer podcast, I am joined by Maiia Zlotnikova, who is from Ukraine and is over in the UK as a student, but is also in marketing and as copywriting for clients. So, Maiia, what made you want to leave Ukraine and come across to the UK, if that's not an obviously stupid question?
I first decided to leave Ukraine when the war started, but I didn't have the opportunity to leave because I've just started my university degree in Ukraine. And I initially decided to study international relations. However, after a year of studying at one of the best universities in Ukraine, I thought, this is not for me. I don't see myself as a diplomat. I don't see myself as someone who's got a very serious job, who's working with politicians. So my other passion was health and fitness, and the only obvious choice was sports and science. I always wanted to live in England ever since I can remember myself. I went to a British school. All of my teachers were from here. I felt like I was a part of this culture before even moving here. So the choice was obvious.
Mm. So when the war started, how old were you?
I was 16. 16.
What was it like as a child, effectively, with something like that happening?
It was incredibly difficult. My entire life crumbled because before the beginning of the war, I was a figure skater. I was figure skating. I've had 2 practices a day. It was my entire life. I lived in the capital city of Ukraine, in Kyiv. I remember the morning when the war has started. I woke up at 5 a.m. from a person who worked in our house, and she was knocking on my door, my dad's bedroom, on my dad's wife's bedroom as well, and screaming, "It started, it started." And I couldn't understand what she meant because I went on my phone and I started Googling stuff and there was nothing there. There were no news. I then switched on the radio. There was nothing there as well. So I thought, well, she must have had a terrible dream. This can't be real. And when I got up, I got out of my bed and I knocked on my dad's door and asked him, "Is everything okay? It must be a mistake, right?" And he says, "Oh, don't worry, just go back to sleep." And at that point, it was around 4:45 a.m. And the moment I closed the door to my dad's bedroom, a huge sound wave hits our house and a painting falls down from the wall. And it drops from a missile landing like right in the region of one of the city. So it was around maybe like 4 kilometers away from us.
So 4 kilometers away, and the reverberation from it hit the vibration. House. And
it's the best way to describe it is when you are in an extremely loud concert, like a rock band, and you're right by the stage, right by the loudspeaker, and you've got the vibration in your chest. And that's what it felt like, that moment.
That must have been pretty terrifying.
Yes, and we've stayed in the house for 3 days, but then the Russian troops were too close to our city, to the capital city of Ukraine. So we left and we went to the Carpathian mountains and we were hiding there. We were extremely lucky because we were in a nice cottage in the middle of nowhere. It was very safe there. Most people weren't as lucky as us. they've had to leave their homes and settle in schools and hospitals and sleep on the floor, on the mattresses, and live there for months.
So when you were in the mountains, were you camping, basically sleeping outside, or did you have was there anywhere you actually stayed in?
It was a tiny house in the middle of nowhere. We had to drive for 60 minutes to the nearest grocery store, to the nearest petrol station.
How long were you up there?
About 2 months. And then eventually, after 3 months after the beginning of the invasion, we went back home to our city, to the capital city of Ukraine, to Kyiv.
And was it safe for you to do that?
No, it's not safe even now. But at the time, we couldn't imagine ourselves moving to another country because my dad, he's an entrepreneur. He's got a business that's in the middle of the war zone. And he's the only person who's managing it.
So he had to go back.
He went back actually before me and his wife went back. So he was there in 2 weeks after we've left. So when he was driving back from the Carpathian mountains to our house, he saw the tanks, he saw everything, cars, people were shot right in their cars, and people were still there.
Wow. It's strange imagining something like that in somewhere where you live and you grow up, because Alan, who you met upstairs, he's been to Kyiv. He went there a few years ago because there was a football match, a Champions League final was in Kyiv, and he travelled out there to watch Liverpool play. I think it was Real Madrid. And to imagine something that has a major football tournament, a major final with the eyes of the world on it, so then just a couple of years later to be a war zone, it seems very strange to me. But it must be strange for you, being it's your home, and then suddenly it's like something you would normally see on TV or in a film.
Yes.
So is that what made you originally want to be a diplomat or go into politics, so that you could perhaps do something about it?
It was one of the reasons. I initially thought I'm going to be a diplomat because I was probably one of the most insecure people you can imagine.
Really?
When I was in my early to middle teens, I had no influence whatsoever on even my own life. I was struggling with mental health. I had really low self-worth, and I thought, if I become a diplomat, I'm going to prove everyone that I'm worth something. I had no intention of being a politician ever. It was never interesting to me. But then, when I was 16, I thought, well, if I can get into politics and I can try and change something, maybe that's worth trying.
So what was it like? I mean, so you were going to university effectively still in a war zone?
Yes.
Which is difficult.
Yes,
going to university at most times, but doing it, what was your daily routine like?
Well, some days we've had air raid sirens at 9 a.m., which is exactly when the university starts. And we had to go to the bomb shelter. We've had bomb shelters in the university. Therefore, whenever we had the siren, which started on everyone's phone at the same time, people, I hate to say this, but they thought it was quote-unquote fun because we were skipping lessons for the entire day, and they can't make us go back to the classroom after the air raid siren is finished because it's the end of the day. Most of the days it could have lasted for 20 minutes, but it could have also taken 6 hours. So it wasn't very effective, and I didn't like anything about my university, about my degree. Most of the days I skipped university and I went to the gym, or I would hang out with some of my friends. I'm not proud of it, but at the time I didn't want to do anything there, really.
And university, obviously, I went to, and I've visited friends at universities as well. They're quite multicultural places. There's a lot of foreign students at universities. Was it like that in Kyiv, or were they all Ukrainian because of what was going on?
The university I went to was not in Kyiv. It was in Lviv.
Right. Sorry.
It's a city right by the Polish border. And there were a lot of medical students who were coming from abroad, especially from countries like Nigeria or China even. They came to Ukraine because Ukraine is quite good for medicine. And they were studying at a separate university. So it wasn't the one I was in. The degree I was studying for, it was an entirely different building in another part of the city. So I never got to meet any of them. Most of the people in my degree, they had no idea what they were doing there. Same as me. They just thought, oh, this looks kind of cool. I might be a politician. Well, politicians make a lot of money in Ukraine.
So I've heard on social media, yes. I don't know how true that is.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's true.
As you brought that up, there's a lot of stuff going around on particularly Twitter, which is a horrible social media platform full of hatred and bile, about Ukraine's prime minister, which is president, isn't it? President, sorry. I always forget which one it is, outside of the UK, about how he earns a lot of money and how he has a lot of money. Is that something that you believe to be true, that politicians in Ukraine do earn huge amounts of money?
Politicians before Volodymyr Zelensky, they were definitely making money in an unfair way. When it comes to our current president, Volodymyr Zelensky, I don't think it's appropriate to judge a person who has the most important part in managing this war. I highly respect this man, and I think he's done a remarkable job at keeping our people safe and at doing everything to mitigate what the war has done.
Because he was a stand-up comedian, wasn't he, originally?
Yes.
Which again, I find strange that someone would go from comedy to politics. Although, having said that, being a comedian, he would know how to deliver a talk. He would know how to control an audience. He would know how to engage with people, which would make him a natural speaker, which would make him perfect to be on camera, for example, to win over people to like him and trust him. So that's a good part of being a comedian. But he gets a lot of stick on social media, particularly from the United States. Because there are people in America, Donald Trump being one of them, that don't support Ukraine and think that there's a lot of money being given to Ukraine that shouldn't be, and that it's not necessarily going where it should be going. What are your thoughts on that?
I suppose I'm not the right person to comment on this. If I were still studying international relations, it would have been my third year.
Yeah.
I would have given you a decent answer. But for now, all I can say is I highly respect my president.
Yeah.
And I respect and I admire every single person on the front line, because they're saving lives every day. And if they weren't there, I wouldn't be here. I would have probably died in the very first morning of the war.
So you say you didn't give a good answer, but you bloody well did. That's a proper diplomat answer as well. I'm not the right person to comment on that. That's a diplomat answer. No, that's brilliant. So in terms of people leaving Ukraine, as I understand it, men aren't currently allowed to leave unless they have special dispensation for it. So there are Ukrainian football teams, for example, that are allowed to leave to play games, but otherwise, is that correct? Men aren't allowed to leave Ukraine at the moment?
Men aren't allowed to leave from the ages of 18 to 60 unless they are competitive athletes and they're going, for example, to the Olympics. Or if they are going, for example, a lot of our soldiers who were injured are going to other countries for recovery purposes. For example, to get their prosthetics or something similar for recovery, basically. That's the only time they would be allowed to leave. But men, even from the ages of 16, I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe they can't leave unless they have sent a letter to the military that they're preparing to go to the front line. They have to go to the medical center and register.
Okay. And I've got to ask what you think about it. What's your thoughts on Russia, why it's happening, and do you think it's going to end at any point?
Ukraine's victory is inevitable.
I like that.
I don't want to comment on Russia because I don't think it deserves a place on this podcast or anywhere in the world, really.
Okay. Let's talk about something more interesting, shall we?
Yeah, absolutely.
So you decided diplomat wasn't for you.
Yeah.
And you wanted to go to the UK because was it a lot of films, television, books, history? What was it about the UK that attracted you?
The history, the people. I grew up around British people because I went to a British school. That's why I ended up here. But the main point was I wanted to move away and be as independent as possible. And at the time when I decided to go to the UK, I was 17. I had no idea how this is going to happen. I just knew I needed to make this happen. I pitched my dad on the idea. He didn't like it at first. I had to prove why this is a great idea. It was difficult. I didn't have the right education to study in the UK because I've left my British school. Well, actually, I got expanded from it.
What did you do?
I was pretty much a nightmare student.
Okay.
I was consistently off task and I was ignoring the school rules. And then I got expanded from the other school after that, after not passing 3 math exams in a row.
Right. So it was just not passing it. You didn't do anything to go, right, that's it. Like you didn't set fire to the school or something.
No. Well, for the first time, I was misbehaving and I was always off task. The teacher would say, do this and do this. And I would stand up and go walk around the classroom, go to the corridor whenever I wanted.
Yeah.
And if I asked, can I go to the bathroom? And they said no, I would stand up and go. And I would get a detention. I didn't care.
Well, so to be honest, I think teachers stopping kids from going to the bathroom they deserve. There's worse things that could happen than you getting up and going to the bathroom. Yeah, I don't think you did anything particularly wrong there. Okay, so you told me when you first got to the UK, the first 2 weeks you spent it in Luton.
First 2 days.
2 days was enough, was it? And you thought if the rest of the UK is like this, I want to go home again.
Well, I didn't think that. I knew I have to make it work. I have no choice. I have to make it work now. Because to me, even living in Luton would be better than going back to my previous life.
Okay, we've got our trailer.
This is probably a compliment to Luton.
Even living in Luton would be better than going back to a war zone.
It's not about the war zone. It's about my previous life.
Right, okay.
I hated my environment so much.
Yeah.
I couldn't grow in it. I had no people I connected with. I had no friends. I've had just one person I would occasionally talk to. And I felt lonely. I knew I wanted to start a business because I can't be the only one in my family who's quote unquote unsuccessful. And I knew I had to get out of my environment. That was my main priority.
I find that remarkable. Your main worry was you didn't want to be the only one in your family who was unsuccessful, yet you're the one that's growing up and starting your academic and potentially business life in a war zone. So you've got some reasons why you might not have the opportunities that other people in your family have had, yet you still think of yourself as, I can't be the only one who's unsuccessful. You still put it all on yourself.
The power goes wherever you point your finger to. If I point the finger at the war or at a bad university, then I'm taking the power from myself and handing it to someone else. Why would I do that? It's an excuse. If I say everything that's wrong in my life is because of me, I can change it. I can't change the war. I can't change my university. But I can move out of the country and I can start another life. When I came here, I couldn't fly back from Ukraine because we don't have, the airports are closed. I had to fly from Warsaw, from Poland. I remember being on the plane and crying because I didn't know a single person in this country. I didn't know where I was going. It was my first time in England. And it's the definition of starting your life from scratch.
And you ended up in Luton.
Yeah.
I can only apologise. So you're in Chester now.
Yeah.
So it got better than Luton. And how are you finding life in Chester?
I absolutely love everything about Chester. It's a small town. It's friendly. It's student-friendly. It's cozy. It's nice. The history is fascinating. It's comfortable to live here. I don't need to commute. I don't need to spend hours on the bus or waste time and have to walk to the grocery store for 40 minutes or take a taxi. People are awesome here.
In what way?
They're kind, and I haven't had a single situation where someone was unkind to me here. I never meet bad people in England.
They exist.
I haven't met any.
They definitely exist. But it's been good so far.
It has been awesome.
Okay, and the university itself?
I think it's structured really well. It's organized. The lecturers are kind, they're knowledgeable, they're professional. But to be honest, university isn't for me. I just don't like being in the classroom. I don't like lectures. I think the entire curriculum could be taken and put into 1.5 years, or maximum 2 years maximum instead of 4. At this point, I believe it's just a system that wants people to pay a lot of money, especially international students. But I think unless you have a dream of becoming a lawyer or a doctor or a scientist, you don't need to go to university. It's terrible return on investment on your time. And you're probably going to end up in debt.
I think you're right. I think it is very much focused towards making money. My eldest currently, he's 23, and he's just doing A-levels online because he didn't get them in school, and he's had to pay to do them. So he's doing 3 A-levels, and then he's going to apply to university when he's done it. Because he's having to race through it and do it, he has effectively done the equivalent of 1 A-level in 3 weeks. And he's fine doing that. And that's what takes you a year Actually, no, A-levels spread over 2 years, aren't they? That would have taken you 2 years to do that work. He's done it in about 3 weeks. It's absolutely fine doing it. So, yes, I think you're right that university does spread things out. It doesn't need to be that length of time. It certainly doesn't need to cost that much money, and it doesn't need to get people into debt to do it. But it's worse in America.
It is.
The costs in America are obscene. Obscene. At least ours is partially funded, or you get money towards it. But yeah. So in terms of what you're actually doing there, what you want to do and what you want to become, it's not what you're doing for your course, is it? Your passions lie elsewhere, and it's not figure skating. No. So what is it? What's your passion?
My passion is entrepreneurship, marketing, and copywriting. And I started with copywriting because it's got an extremely low barrier to entry, which is both good and bad. Let me put this into context. If you are a teenager and you want to make money online, and you Google how to make money online, after dropshipping and affiliate marketing, you're going to stumble across copywriting.
Mm-hmm.
And most teenagers get into that thinking they're going to get rich overnight. They think they're entitled to a £2,000 a month retainer after doing copywriting for a week. And that's how I initially got into copywriting. I thought, I'm going to use it as a mechanism to make money and then start a proper business. Because when I decided I need a business, I've had $4,000 in my bank account. That's it. And I knew I can't start a dropshipping company. I can't start developing products because the risk is so high. So the only answer was learn a skill, sell it, make money, and build a business around a service. I didn't want to do website design or coding because I didn't know how I'm going to apply it to real life. Whereas copywriting basically just means selling in written form. And I knew that very successful people, they all started either in high ticket sales or in marketing. I thought, if I'm going to learn this one skill, I can apply it to anything. And if I invest into learning it, it's impossible to fail. Because even if I don't make money in a year, there is no way I won't be successful in the future with this.
So obviously to be a copywriter, you need to have a very good grasp of English, and English isn't your first language. How have you managed to be able to do that? Because you speak better English than most people I know from the UK.
English never was the problem for me because I grew up in a British-speaking environment because of my school. When I was 10 years old, that was when I started in my British school. The only thing I could say in English was hello and goodbye, yes and no. It was quite traumatic, I must say, because I was sitting in those lessons with all of those kids speaking perfect English, being in this school from nursery, and there's me. And I can't even answer a question. I can't even write my name in English. And in a single year, I went from not saying how to ask permission to go out to the corridor to learning like all the other kids and writing. And on my second year, I won the poetry slam in my school. So I wrote a poem in English in my second year of studying English. And I loved the language. I would even sometimes go back home and I would speak English to my mom. So in copywriting, it was never the problem, especially because my written English is better than my spoken English, because I spent so much time writing at this point. But when I started copywriting, I've had to use tools such as, I still do use tools such as Grammarly, because I want my grammar to be on point. But in terms of getting the feel of the language, I can make jokes in my copy. I can make it fun. I can tell stories. If you go onto copywriting forums, people ask all the time, can I become a copywriter if I'm from Budapest, or I'm from Moldova, or from Warsaw? And I'd say yes, because if you point if the direction goes to you, then you can do anything. You can become a copywriter, you can become the best in the world. But if you point at your language or your country or your city, then you're not going to make it.
It's interesting you mentioned Budapest, actually, because one of our web designers, and Pat, you may well be editing this, is from Budapest. He wasn't there today because he's working from home. But when we bring new team members in, every single person, whether their role is copywriting, editing, or web design or sales, we will make them do a grammar test to see what their standard of grammar is. In other words, are we going to let them loose on social media, or do they need somebody to watch them? And Gab, obviously, his first language was not English. I can't even say it. It was not English. Yet his level of copywriting, his level of grammar was a lot higher than some of the other people that we've got. Not the copywriters or the editors, of course, but it was a lot higher than some of the other people. Ryan, for example, not mentioning any names. So that's interesting that the level of English taught in other countries is better than the level of English that we pick up ourselves here. Bit worrying, bit embarrassing, but certainly interesting. So in terms of you then doing copywriting, you haven't just gone off and it's like, right, this is how I do it. You've had to learn techniques to it because it's a special skill, doing copywriting. Even if somebody is good at English and write essays in school, doesn't mean they can do copy. So how have you managed to do that? Where have you got that from?
Well, copywriting has nothing to do with how good of a writer you are. You can write a book and it doesn't mean you're going to be a great copywriter. It's like learning another language, the language of persuasion. My first month of copywriting, I was copying famous copywriting pieces by Gary Halbert by hand every single day. I would open my MacBook and I would not open a Google Doc to type them in. I would write them by hand every single day. And that's how I learned in the initial stages. Of course, it wasn't enough to start landing clients, because landing clients is not about how good of a copywriter you are. You need to learn sales, you need to learn client acquisition, you need to learn so many other skills. So in my second month, after writing copy and practicing, and it was horrible at the beginning stages, I was first learning how to write emails, because most copywriting professionals will tell you to start with those, because ads are too difficult for beginners, and sales pages and landing pages are way too long to write a lot every single day. And I reached out to a copywriting mentor, my first one. Now I've got a second mentor. My first one, he's from Canada, and he's been a copywriter for 5 years. And he's a 6-figure copywriter, so he definitely knows his stuff. He's worked with e-commerce brands. He's been making $8,000 a month from a single client. And he was sending these marketing emails to his subscribers. I'm taking on 3 students for a high-ticket program. And the moment I saw it, I thought, well, wait, how much does this cost? I'm not going to risk all my money for this. And then I watched one of Alex Hormozy's videos where he said, when you're young, it's almost impossible to waste your money if you're spending them on acquiring a skill. Because there isn't a world where a skill wouldn't be valuable, where having lots of skills is not going to help you. And I came back, that was when I was in Ukraine for the summer holidays. And I went back to Chester in August, and I reached out to him again. And I said, just take my money. I want to work as hard as I can for a month, because I can only afford you for a month. And we did it. I started writing for about 8 to 12 hours every single day because I could. Because I'm privileged enough not to have to work on during the holidays. I had nothing else to do. The only time I would leave my house was to either buy groceries once a week or go to the gym 4 times a week. I was sitting in my room with nothing on my desk. The blindfolds, the curtains were closed. I was wearing my noise cancellation earplugs and I was writing for 12 hours. I was eating every single meal in front of my computer because I didn't stop writing when I was eating. And at that point, I knew this is not going to be an overnight success, and I'm not going to magically land 4-figure clients every month. And the feedback that my mentor gave me, it was invaluable. If anyone's listening to this and they want to acquire any skill, not just copywriting, instead of buying 10 courses, hire a mentor for a month and you'll get so much more out of it. Because I've lived in this matrix for a month where I would write the entire day, and because he's in Canada, he's in the other time zone. So I would go to bed, and then the next morning I would wake up at 5 and I would have 3 Loom videos sent to my Telegram with a full review of every single piece of my copy. And on top of that, I've had calls with him every week. And that was how I've learned copywriting. And on top of that, I was listening to copywriting podcasts when I was training in the gym. Like, my entire life became copywriting. And that's the fastest way to learn because, like, money loves speed. If you want to start making money, if you want to get good, you have to, like, outwork other people who are doing the same thing. Because a lot of teenagers, or even like people in their 20s, they think that copywriting means sitting in your swimsuit in Thailand on the beach, writing 1 email a day and making $10,000 a month.
Yeah.
And that's what they sell you on YouTube.
Sell you the dream.
Yeah, they sell you, which is what copywriters do. They need to sell opportunities and dreams to people, not products.
So when you were writing constantly for this whole month, what sort of stuff were you writing? Was this email newsletters that you were putting together?
No, I was looking for clients online. I was doing outreach, actually, cold outreach, which is the other name for cold outreach is the game The Last Man Standing. Because you never know how long it's going to take, and it's painful every time you do cold outreach. But my mentor, he helped me identify how to do it correctly. So instead of spamming people and saying, "Can I write you emails for 1K a month?" No one's going to reply to this. But if you subscribe to their email newsletter and you get an email and you see that it could be improved, like their call to action isn't strong enough, their sales page could be better, their email subject line isn't hooking enough, they're probably getting low open rates, write a brand new email for them for free, send it over and say, "This is for you, you can use it." And then if they think it's valuable and if the copy is good, they're going to hire you. However, I would never recommend anyone do the same, even though it worked for me in the beginning stages, because there's a much smarter way to land clients. If you find a network of people, of business owners, and you deliver them value for free consistently, sooner or later, you're going to get leads. And you're going to get there faster than reaching out to people you don't know at all. If you're starting out at zero, I mean zero money, zero network, you're alone in your room, cold outreach could be the way. But instead of sending 25 messages, send 3 quality pieces every day, and I guarantee you'll land clients. It's impossible not to. Most people give up after 3 outreach messages.
You're absolutely right. Yeah, I get so many messages on LinkedIn from people some for copywriting, some for web design, some for SEO, and they'll take the same format, exactly every single one, and they'll say, we can do this for you. These are our rates. We charge $25 an hour, whatever it is. Here's some links to stuff that we've done before. Let's set up a call. No, let's not. And you just ignore it, and it doesn't work. But your concept of writing an example for them, subscribing to them, engaging with them first of all, giving them an alternative to something they've already done so that they can see that you can do that. That's inspired. Obviously, it's very time consuming. You can't do many of that because it takes such a long time to do it. And you'll be putting a lot of effort in without reward a lot of the time. But it does work, as you said. But the other thing you talked about there, having a network of business people around you and helping them and then getting leads, you've effectively just described referral marketing. That's what that is. That's what BNI is. That's what the Chester Business Network, it's also Manchester Business Network. That's what they are. It's meeting with people, talking to them, showing that you know what you're talking about, showing that you're good at what you do. You do what you say you're going to do when you say you're going to do it. You're giving them advice so they know when they have something, they can turn to you because you're right there and you've already proven yourself. So what's your next step in all of this? Because you've used the mentor for a month. That was quite expensive. I've not asked you how much the mentor was. That's none of my business, and I won't ask you that. But you've used that for a month. You said you've got another mentor as well now.
Yes.
Yep. Is that just a month again, or is that an ongoing one?
I've paid her for my second month now.
Okay.
I found my new mentor through a podcast. I reached out to her, and at that point, she wasn't taking one-on-one students anymore because her business scaled to a point where she was making beyond $30,000 a month. And having students wasn't profitable. It was time-consuming. However, by the way, she's 22 years old.
She's 22?
Yes. And she started out in business when she was 19, so my age. And she wanted to help me, genuinely wanted to help me, even if it wasn't that much profitable to her. Then, for example, a client was paying her $10,000 a month on retainer. And she decided to help me out. She wasn't reviewing my copy anymore because for the next 3 months after I've hired my first mentor, there wasn't a single day where I was not writing. I was getting better every single day. My copy at that point was good enough to land freelance clients and get paid $1,000 for a project. She was helping me with acquiring clients and with my business strategy because I don't want to do copywriting for the rest of my life. And she's not doing just copywriting. She's a business owner. So she told me about the school platform. Well, I've heard of it before, but I didn't know exactly how it works. And she is the copywriter for multiple school game winners. And me being a huge fan of Alex Hormozy, he's my biggest hero, like, in life. It's probably one of my biggest dreams to meet him one day.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that if he's invested into this platform, it's worth trying out. So I've started my own school community to have leads come to me rather than me outreaching, which is a smarter strategy because then I can focus on landing high-ticket clients and giving them all of my attention and not have to send cold outreach. Because I'm at this point where I'm not doing free work anymore. I've done a lot of free work for clients, and now I'm ready to get paid and start a proper business. Within 3 weeks of engaging with business owners in school, I've landed two clients, 2 high-ticket clients, with me being a copywriter for less than 4 months. And they didn't even ask how much experience I have in a sales call, because prior to me hopping on a sales call with them, I gave them so much free advice on how to improve their own school communities that they've trusted me so much. They didn't even want a contract. They just paid me on PayPal the entire amount before I even started work. That's how much they trusted me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. Well done.
Thank you.
That is fantastic. Are they clients in the UK or the US?
They're clients in the US.
In the US.
In the US. One of them is, well, actually, one of the clients, he's in the UK, but he's from Portugal originally. But the other one, he's in the US. And they're in different niches, which is, it's a big myth that all copywriters tend to believe that you need to be in one single niche to become successful. I don't think it's true. Because it's worth noting that if you're a great copywriter, you know how to do research, and you are willing to acquire new knowledge, you can be in every single niche. I don't recommend doing all types of copy like sales pages and ads when you're just starting out. If you're an email copywriter, just do that for a while. But if you write every single day for 4 months, like I did, you'll have no problem writing for any niche. One of my clients right now, he's in tech, and my other client, he owns a wrestling academy online.
An online wrestling academy?
Yes, and an in-person one as well, but I'm writing primarily for the online one.
Is that the American one?
Yes.
Right. Wow.
And they're at totally different niches.
Yeah.
And my copy is delivering results. Because I took the time to understand what is headgear and how much wrestling socks cost. And then I compared his $29.99 subscription to the price of wrestling socks in an email. And it worked.
So if somebody is interested in wrestling, they buy the wrestling socks, but they can get advice from him effectively for, is it the same cost or cheaper?
It's slightly cheaper.
Slightly cheaper.
So he's selling like a subscription to wrestling technique videos and how to do all of those things where they kick you down and you dominate on the mat. I still need to learn my my terminology. I've been working with him for 2 weeks.
2 weeks? Wow.
Yeah. I've only did research on stuff that wrestling coaches say. So when I write emails, I try to make them both entertaining and valuable, because if you make emails valuable and fun, people will be hooked on them. And if they open every single one of them and they read it and they're excited about new ones, after you develop this relationship for a while, they're going to buy anything you put in front of them because they trust you and they like you.
I bet you subscribe to a lot of email newsletters as well, don't you? I bet you keep them and file them and refer back to them.
I don't know. I know lots of copywriters use swipe files.
Right.
I don't.
You don't use them?
I don't use them.
So you come up with everything for each one from scratch then? You're not using existing content?
I use existing angles. If I put this into context, let's say you're a fitness trainer and you're launching a Facebook ad, and you think that your target audience is struggling with meal prep, and the angle of your ad is learn how to meal prep in 30 minutes a week and never struggle with what to eat and how to lose weight ever again. But in fact, your audience is struggling with time management for their workouts. And you don't even know that. And you launch that meal prep ad hoping it's going to get clicks. And it doesn't, because that's not what people need. So with my new clients, I always recommend them test different angles, even if they think they found a winning one. Because even if you throw in a hideous creative in Canva and launch a new ad with a slightly different angle, there is a chance that it's going to perform well. You might as well get extremely high costs per click if it's not going to be the winning angle, but at least you learn what's working. And it seems like a difficult strategy, but it's the ultimate fast track to understanding what people want. And the most common mistake I see with my clients when I onboard them, especially with Facebook ads, they're trying to sell a product inside the ad itself. But that's like trying to get married on a first date. You should sell the click in a Facebook ad, not the product itself. Because the amount of ads I see with 5 different random features and then call to action, buy now, it's ridiculous. 8 out of 10 ads, by the way, only 2 out of 10 Facebook ads have strong copy, according to WordStream 2023. And up to 65% of a Facebook ad success depends on its copy, not on the creative, not on targeting. And when you're selling the click, you shouldn't sell the product itself. You should sell the opportunity and the dream, because no one wakes up in the morning and thinks, well, I really need this 25-page guide and a bonus today. Let me see if I can find an ad that sells me that.
Yeah.
They think, why is that person has got it all figured out and I can't make more than 5K a month with my business? If you market the opportunity, you're going to get way ahead of people who market a 25-page guide on how to improve your business.
No, you're right. People don't want the guide. They want what the guide gives them. They want the results at the end of the day. And that's what you're selling. You're selling the impact, the change on somebody's life, change on their lifestyle. There's a really good sales trainer I've had on this podcast actually from Liverpool called Andy Bounds, and he calls it the afters. You're not selling your service. You're not selling your service as a copywriter. You're selling the afters. What effect do you leave somebody after you have worked with them? And that's the increased business they've got in your case, or the increased engagement, the increased order value from their subscribers, whatever that may be. Not, here's some landing page copy, that's what you wanted. No. So no, that's absolutely spot on. What advice would you give people who are thinking of running their own Facebook ads or setting up their own email newsletters, creating their own landing pages? What sort of things should they be looking at?
They should be looking at what your target audience wants, not what you want them to want. Because you can't create demand for a product. You can only fulfill the demand. For example, Louis Vuitton doesn't create the demand for luxury. They fulfill the demand for luxury. And the only formula you need to have a successful ad or email or anything that drives action that gives you those conversions is the A to B bridge, which is A, where's your target audience now? B, where do they want to be? And then your product or service is the ultimate bridge. If you can make your product the bridge, if you can sell it in a way that resonates with your target audience, by the way, don't use your professional slang, use their language. And for that, you need to do some target audience research. But use their language. And copywriting is really the wrapper of success for your brand. That's the difference between a successful company and an unsuccessful company. And to quote David Ogilvy, we don't sell the whiskey, we sell the picture of a man that drinks whiskey. And yeah, the copy should be written in a 5th grader level. If a 10-year-old wouldn't understand what you want them to do in the call to action, you shouldn't post that piece of copy. It's not going to convert. There is no point in launching a Facebook ad if it doesn't grab attention, or an email that doesn't have a strong hook, especially if you're writing for a young target audience. Because, especially with young people nowadays, they have attention spans of a goldfish.
What?
I'm sorry to say this, but this is so true. I see people sitting in a lecture and they can't stand listening to the lecture for more than 2 minutes. They open TikTok. When you are writing to a target audience who are between the ages of 16 and 25, you're competing with a friend who sent them a meme, with TikTok, with other emails in their news box, and with their mom calling them for dinner. So if you don't create an extremely enticing hook, you're not going to convert them. Call them out in a Facebook ad, call them out in emails, give them what they want, and don't reveal all the best parts of your product in an ad, because you should kind of almost like tease them in an ad, so they want to know what's coming on next. You need to use open loops and not close them until they do what you want them to do, which is click onto your link. And I wanted to quote Harry Dry, which is an amazing copywriter. He's really young, but his writing is at the level of Daniel Throssell, who's Australia's best copywriter. By the way, if someone wants great email copy examples based on storytelling, instead of just going and reading Gary Halbert's pieces, I'd recommend Daniel Throssell, because he's got a more modern take on it. Subscribe to his newsletter. You'd be surprised when you receive that first email. And I want to quote Harry Dry and say that a great piece of copy is a burrito. If I throw it at you, it won't fall apart. Because if I throw a taco at you, a taco is a bad piece of copy.
Yeah.
The lettuce and the mince is going to go all over the studio. But if I throw a burrito, you'll catch it. What this means is you need to create copy that is so easy to remember that it gets stuck in people's head. For example, Apple's 1000 songs in your pocket.
Yes.
Or worn by supermodels in London and dads in Ohio. That's slogan of New Balance shoes. It's super easy to remember. And the easiest way to create a great ad or a great slogan is to ask yourself, can I visualize this? Because you can certainly visualize a supermodel in London and a dad in Ohio. Can I justify it? Is it true about my brand? But I'm not like the people who are studying at my university or my housemates. I can't resonate with them. The only thing I want to talk about is business. Or fitness. But business, I love business more. I thought there's nothing I love more than sports and fitness, but I love business. I love entrepreneurship. My goal is to be making millions of dollars by the time I'm 30. It's not about the money, it's about the game. So I don't feel lonely because I get on sales calls, because I have a mentor, because I feel like I'm a part of something bigger than me. And it's so crucial to feel like you've got a sense of purpose and you're not just here to exist. You don't wake up at 10 a.m. sleeping in and then going about your day hoping opportunities come your way. You wake up, which by the way, my routine is insane right now, but I got used to it. And I don't think it's insane anymore, but I wake up at 4:30 every single morning and I do 3 hours of deep work before I start my day. I think I got addicted to it because I don't take days off, but I love deep work so much. It's the best part of my day. And I used to not be able to sit in front of my computer and write for 1 hour without standing up, getting interrupted. But it's not about what successful people do that you don't do. It's the opposite. It's what they don't do that you do. And I've learned that from Alex Hormozzi's videos, where he said, when unsuccessful athletes look at successful athletes, they think, how is he training and what is he doing that I'm not doing? But in reality, they're just saying no to everything and saying yes to one single thing. And it's a pretty long period of your life where you can't be with the people you want to be yet, and you don't have a network around you. It's there. You don't live with people you love, especially if you're young. And the best way to get out of this is just work more. This is the answer to everything.
The answer to everything is
work more. Because
that's so not a British philosophy. But go on.
Because if you consider your life, your work for a season of life, it doesn't have to be for the rest of your life. But if you commit to this for 3 years, and if you consider your work genuinely your life, you'll get ahead of 99% of the people out there. Because they talk about this work-life balance, which, by the way, doesn't exist. There can be harmony where you feel okay with working 12 hours a day if you're someone like Alex Hormozi, and you can do it for the rest of your life, and you're totally complacent with that. But the person that loves walking will walk further than the person that loves the destination. And if you enjoy being in the process of becoming, it will be so much easier. When I just started out, I thought, I need to get clients fast. I need to make my first $1,000 online. If I don't do this, I'm a failure. I need to make money ASAP. And then it stopped being about that. I stopped chasing money. Now my goal is to become the person I want to be. And it's not where I am now. And that's why I'm not giving up. Because it's really painful to be where I am now. It's really, really painful. It's more painful than waking up at 4 a.m. every morning. I hate it. I hate where I am now. I hate it so much. And that's how I'm planning on moving on. And the big dream, which I know big dreams change when you're 19 years old, and I might be looking back at this video in 3 years' time and thinking, what was I thinking? But my dream right now is to, once I max out my copywriting income, I'm nowhere near that now. Once I get to 15K a month, I will start thinking of how to start a company that's similar to Alex Hormozi's acquisition.com. I want to help other businesses grow. And for doing that, I want to take a part of their revenue. Mm-hmm. And I don't want it to be an agency because agencies don't pay enough attention to every client. And I think everyone knows this in the industry.
We do, but that's okay. Go on.
No, I mean agencies where there's one person working.
Yeah. Okay.
And I want to build out the other businesses because there's nothing I love more than business. And I think it's so exciting. You can't lose in business unless you stop. This is what I love about it. You win when you decide that you're a winner, which I've decided I'm a winner. And if I don't stop, it's impossible to fail. It's genuinely impossible. Yeah. If I'm 40 years old, when I'm 40 years old, if I'm still not making millions of dollars a year, I'll be still trying. And then maybe when I'm 70, I'll get there. But I know it will happen earlier.
Well, there's huge stories of people like that. What was it? It was Samuel L. Jackson didn't get his first film role until he was 45. Colonel Sanders didn't found KFC until he was in his 50s, I think it was. Henry Ford was in his 40s, I think, when he first founded Ford. So there's people do things late on. They don't all do them when they're 19. So I think you have time on your side, definitely, for that. One thing you said, I've got a question though. You said you've been to networking events and you've been around business people. I know, that's where I found you. But you said you didn't feel like you belonged because there's people in there that have got lots of business experience. That's wrong. You absolutely belong there, more so than many of them, because yes, there are people in there that have been running a business for 10 years, but they're still doing it blind. They don't know how to run a business. They've effectively got themselves their own job. So if they stop working, they stop earning. They can't go on holiday. They can't take people on because they can't afford to. or they're afraid that if they take people on, they're going to leave and take their clients or their customers with them. And there's also people in networking events, and that one we met in Chester, they're not business owners. Some of them are employees. Some of them are going there because they are paid to go there and they work for other people.
Yes.
They don't run their own businesses. You do. Shh. I'll tell you. So you absolutely belong there. So don't think that for a second. You belong there more than most people do. Okay?
Yeah.
So there is no reason you can't be doing that now and surrounding yourself with people, because you've absolutely got what it takes to do it. And that's important that you know that. All right? Okay, good. Lecture over. If you're the least successful person in your family, your dad must be one very, very proud man. That's for sure. Don't well up. Now, for anyone listening to this who's thinking, I like the sound of what she's saying, I would love to get her to do some copywriting for me. I would love to get her to do some landing pages for me, or to get involved with your school platform so that they can learn from you. What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
The best way to get in touch with me would be through my school platform. Right now, the name of my community is School Ads Copybook. It might get changed in the future. Right now, it's School Ads Copybook, and I'm sure we'll leave a link somewhere.
We will. We'll put the link below the podcast for you. Absolutely.
Or through my email address. It works well as well.
Yeah, you can say that if you want. We'll put it below the podcast as well if you want to say your email.
Say it letter by letter.
Oh, yeah. No, that's probably not a good idea, is it? No one's going to write that down. We'll put the link below the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll put the email below the podcast so that you can click on that and get in touch with Maiia directly through that. So Maiia, thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren.
Thank you for being on the podcast.
It was an honor to come here.
Honestly, no, the honor's mine. Seriously, it's rare I meet people that know where they're going and know where they want to be. The fact that you're so young makes it even more incredible. I've met maybe one other person, I think, who is 18, 19, that knew so clearly what they wanted to go. I tried to hire them, but they didn't. They went off and did their own thing, and I'm gutted I missed out on him. And that was about 10, 15 years ago. Tried to hire him on the spot, but he went off. So fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Darren.